One of the greatest warriors in the history of Islam, Hazrat Khalid ibn al-Walid, R.A., before whose unsheathed sword the superpowers of the time, the Persian and Roman empires, were forced to kneel. His presence on the battlefield could change the situation and outcome of a war at any moment. With military intelligence, strategy, strength, courage, speed, and agility combined, he was an invincible warrior. The Messenger of Allah himself gave him the title Saifullah, meaning the Sword of Allah, based on the book The Sword of Allah written by renowned Pakistani military researcher A.I. Akram. We are presenting the life story of this great hero in a continuous series. If you have not watched our previously published videos about Khalid, R.A., we request you to visit the link in the description and watch those videos. Also, subscribe to our channel to regularly receive upcoming videos. As the merchant caravan returned safely from Palestine, the people of Mecca were filled with joy and celebration. This caravan had been advancing through great danger along the coastal route near Medina over the past few days and was almost captured by the Muslim forces. It was only due to the skill and leadership of Abu Sufyan that the caravan managed to return safely. The caravan carried goods worth between 1,000 and 50,000 dinars. In this journey, Abu Sufyan made a profit of 100%. Every notable family in Mecca had invested in this trade expedition. Therefore, the return of this caravan with expected profit was a matter of joy and celebration for every Meccan. This event took place in March 6, 24 CE. It was springtime in Arabia. While the people of Mecca were celebrating with music and dance, and the traders were stretching out their hands to receive their share of the huge profits, at that very moment the defeated and shattered Quraysh army from the Battle of Badr began their exhausting journey back to Mecca. Abu Sufyan, fearing that his caravan might be attacked by the Muslims, had sent a message to Mecca asking for help, and at that time the Quraysh army had already left Mecca. But before the Quraysh army could reach the location, Abu Sufyan safely crossed the dangerous area with his caravan and sent a message instructing the Quraysh army to return to Mecca. However, the commander of the Quraysh army, Abu Jahl, did not pay any attention to this. He had spent 15 long years in intense opposition to the Messenger of Allah, PBUH, and he was not willing to miss this opportunity. Therefore, instead of returning to Mecca, he engaged the Muslim forces in a battle at Badr. This arrogant army was now returning to Mecca in a broken and humiliated condition. While the Quraysh army was still on the way, a messenger quickly reached Mecca on a fast camel. As he approached the outskirts of the city, he began tearing his clothes and loudly lamenting while describing the tragic events of Badr. The people of Mecca quickly gathered around him to hear news of the battle. They began asking about their loved ones, and he answered them one by one. Among them were Abu Sufyan and his wife Hind. From the messenger, Hind learned about the losses of her loved ones. Her father Ibba, her uncle Shayba, her brother Walid, and her son Hanzala had all been killed in this battle. They were all killed by Hazrat Ali, R.A., and the Prophet's uncle Hamza, R.A. She began to curse Hamza and Ali and burned with a desire for revenge. The Battle of Badr was the first major confrontation between the Muslims and their enemies. A small Muslim force of 313 mujahideen stood firm like a rock against a large army of 1,000 disbelievers. After about 2 hours of intense fighting, the Muslims defeated the Quraysh army, and the Quraysh fled the battlefield in disorder. The best warriors of the Quraysh were either killed or captured. In exchange for the martyrdom of only 14 Muslim fighters, 70 disbelieving Quraysh were killed and another 70 were captured. Among those killed, 17 belonged to the Banu Makhzum clan, and all of them were either cousins or nephews of Khalid. Abu Jahl was also killed in the battle. Khalid's brother Walid was taken prisoner by the Muslims. The messenger was naming the killers of the deceased one by one, and the Quraysh were counting them. In the list of killers, the names of Hazrat Ali, R.A., and Hamza, R.A., were appearing repeatedly. Ali, R.A., personally killed 18 men and participated in the killing of 4 others. Hamza, R.A., personally killed 4 men and participated with Ali in killing another 4. Therefore, in this grief-stricken gathering of the Quraysh, the name of Hazrat Ali, R.A., was being mentioned again and again. 2 days after the incident, Abu Sufyan called a meeting of the leading Quraysh figures. There was no one present who had not lost a loved one in the Battle of Badr. Some had lost their fathers, some their sons, and others their brothers. Among those present, the most vocal were Safwan ibn Umayyah and Ikrimah, the son of Abu Jahl. It was very difficult to restrain Ikrimah. His father had achieved the rare honor of commanding the Quraysh army at Badr and had been killed in the battle. However, Ikrimah had some slight consolation in the fact that both he and his father had each managed to kill a Muslim in the battle. Moreover, he had also managed to wound his father's killer. But even this did not quench his thirst for revenge. He repeatedly influenced the meeting by insisting that for the honor of the great Quraysh tribe, they must take revenge. Abu Sufyan said to him, "In the battle, I have lost my son Hanzala. My thirst for revenge is no less than yours. I will be the first to prepare and lead a powerful campaign against Muhammad." After assuming leadership, Abu Sufyan issued 2 directives, the first of which was accepted by almost everyone without objection. The first was that no one should mourn or express grief for those killed in the Battle of Badr, because tears might wash away the bitterness of the heart. That bitterness had to be kept alive in order to take revenge against the Muslim forces. Even those whose losses were immense and whose grief was unbearable were not allowed to cry publicly. The second directive concerned the prisoners in the hands of the Muslims. Abu Sufyan forbade any attempt to free the prisoners, because if such efforts were made too soon, the Muslims might demand a higher ransom. However, this decision was not accepted by everyone. Within 2 days, it was seen that a man secretly left Mecca for Medina in order to free his father in exchange for ransom. When this became known, others also took matters into their own hands and brought back their loved ones. Abu Sufyan had no choice but to cancel the second directive. The ransom amounts varied. The highest was 4,000 dirhams, and even the poorest were required to pay at least 1,000 dirhams. Some prisoners were unable to pay ransom but were educated, and they gained their freedom by teaching Muslim boys and girls how to read and write. Some distressed prisoners were released by the Messenger of Allah, PBUH, without any ransom, on the condition that they would never again take up arms against the Muslims. Among those involved in the efforts to free prisoners were Ikrimah, Khalid, and his brother Hisham. Khalid had not participated in the Battle of Badr because he was absent in Hijaz. Khalid and Hisham arranged the release of their brother Walid. When Hisham heard that the ransom amount was 4,000 dirhams, he began to bargain, but Khalid rebuked him. Eventually, Walid was freed in exchange for 4,000 dirhams. The 3 brothers then left Medina for Mecca and camped a few miles away at a place called Tul Halefa for the night. Surprisingly, from there Walid escaped during the night, returned to Medina, met the Messenger of Allah, PBUH, and accepted Islam. Later, he became a devoted Muslim and a beloved companion of the Prophet, PBUH. Despite accepting Islam, his relationship with Khalid remained as warm and affectionate as before. Although the desire for revenge was dominant in deciding to launch a campaign against the Muslims, the issue of economic survival was also given serious consideration. After the Battle of Badr, the coastal trade route used by the Quraysh caravans to Syria and Palestine was permanently closed. Safwan ibn Umayyah, thinking it safe, sent another merchant caravan towards Syria by an alternative route. This caravan left Mecca via Iraq, and after traveling some distance, it turned northwest towards Syria, avoiding Medina. They considered this route safe. However, the Messenger of Allah, PBUH, came to know of this and sent Zayd with 100 soldiers, who captured them and brought them back according to the Prophet's instructions. After this incident, Safwan met Abu Sufyan, and the 2 leaders agreed that since their economic prosperity depended on trade with Syria, it would be best to destroy the Muslims as quickly as possible and reopen the route. Meanwhile, Ikrimah, the son of Abu Jahl, became impatient and began pressuring to accelerate the campaign. Abu Sufyan knew from his long experience that preparing an expedition and acquiring camels, horses, weapons, and supplies required time. Nevertheless, he declared that everything would be done as quickly as possible. Thus, the proper preparation for the campaign began. During the preparations, a suspicious disbeliever came to Abu Sufyan with a proposal. This man was Abu Amir of Medina. He could not accept the migration of the Messenger of Allah, PBUH, to to Medina and the rapid acceptance of Islam by the people of his AWS tribe. As a result, he left Medina and decided not to return as long as the Prophet remained in authority there. In Mecca, he tried to incite the Quraysh against the Muslims. At one time, Abu Amir was known as a pious man, but the Prophet, PBUH, had named him the deceiver. This deceiver, Abu Amir, said to Abu Sufyan, "I have 50 men from my tribe with me. I have considerable influence over the AWS tribe. I believe that if I am given the opportunity to speak to the members of my tribe who have joined the Muslim army before the battle begins, they will abandon Muhammad and join my side." Abu Sufyan gladly accepted this proposal. Among the two major tribes of Medina, the AWS was 1, and 1/3 of the Muslim army belonged to this tribe. Discussions continued with neighboring tribes, and two powerful groups from the Kinana and Thaqif tribes joined the Quraysh side. At the beginning of March 625 CE, the gathering of the expeditionary forces began in Mecca. During this time, Abbas, R.A., the uncle of the Prophet, PBUH, sent him detailed information about the Quraysh preparations from Mecca. In the second week of March, the Quraysh set out from Mecca. Their army was 3 times larger than at Badr, numbering 3,000 soldiers. Among them, 700 were armored. They also had 3,000 camels and 200 horses. Along with them, 15 Quraysh women joined in litters. Their role was to remind the soldiers of their loved ones who had been killed at Badr and to boost their morale. This group of women was led by the wife of Abu Sufyan. Among others were the wife of Ikrimah, the wife of Amr ibn al-As, and Khalid's sister. Among these women, we will later learn about one in particular. Among them were also some female singers who carried tambourines and drums. While traveling on the way to Medina, one of the Quraysh leaders, Jubair ibn Mut'im, made a proposal to his slave Washer ibn Harb. "If you kill Hamza, the uncle of Muhammad, who killed my uncle at Badr, I will grant you your freedom." The slave was known for his cruel and savage nature, and he was very pleased with this offer from his master. This tall, Abyssinian black slave always fought with a spear from his homeland, Africa. He was extremely skilled in throwing the spear, and it was never heard that his throw ever missed its target. After traveling some distance, the savage slave saw a camel carrying a howdah come and stopped beside him. From the howdah, Abu Sufyan's wife Hind looked at him and said, "O father of the dark-skinned one, stay well and win your reward." Saying this, she promised to give him all the jewelry she was wearing if he could kill Hamza, the killer of her father. Greed made the slave's eyes sparkle. He stared greedily at Hind's jewelry. The ornaments were very valuable, and the possibility of obtaining them made his face shine with excitement. Even before the Quraysh left Mecca, Abbas, R.A., had warned the messenger of Allah, PBUH, about their preparations. While the Quraysh were on their way to Medina, the Prophet continued receiving constant information from friendly tribes. On March 20th, the Quraysh reached a place a few miles from Medina and camped in a wooded area west of Mount Ahad. On the same day, the messenger of Allah, PBUH, sent 2 scouts to observe the movements of the Quraysh, and they returned with accurate information about the enemy's strength. On March 21st, the messenger of Allah, PBUH, left Medina with 1,000 soldiers, among whom 100 were armored. In contrast, the Quraysh numbered 3,000, with 700 armored soldiers. The Quraysh had 200 horses, while the Muslim army had only 2, one of which was ridden by the messenger of Allah, PBUH. This Muslim force camped for the night near a small black hill called Shaykan, a little over a mile north of Medina. The next morning, before the march began, a group of 300 hypocrites led by Abdullah ibn Ubay withdrew from the Prophet's army. Their excuse was that there was no chance of victory by fighting the Quraysh outside Medina, and therefore, knowing defeat was certain, they refused to participate in the battle. The hypocrites returned to Medina. The number of the Prophet's army was reduced to only 700, and with this force, he left the camp. In reality, the messenger of Allah, PBUH, himself did not wish to fight outside Medina. His preference was that the Muslims would wait for the Quraysh within their own homeland and fight on the soil of Medina. However, the majority of the Muslims were in favor of going out to confront the Quraysh. Therefore, he accepted the opinion of the majority and decided to fight outside Medina. Although he set out under the open sky for battle, Strategically, he wanted to engage the enemy at a location of his choosing. Thus, he positioned his forces at the foot of Mount Ahad. Mount Ahad is a vast mountainous area located about 4 miles north of Medina, rising approximately 1,000 feet above the plain and stretching about 5 miles in length. The Messenger of Allah, PBUH, organized his forces carefully. He positioned his left wing at the foot of a rugged mountain pass, and the right wing near a low hill. The right side of the Muslim army was secure, but there was a risk that the enemy could attack from behind the left flank through the other side of the pass. To counter this danger, the Messenger of Allah, PBUH, instructed 50 archers to take position on top of Mount Ajnadayn, so that they could protect the Muslim army from a rear attack. Under the leadership of Abdullah ibn Jubair, R.A., the Prophet gave very clear and specific instructions to this group of archers. Use your arrows against the enemy cavalry. Protect our rear from attack. As long as you hold your position firmly, our rear will remain safe. Under no circumstances should you leave this position. Even if you see us victorious, do not join us. And even if you see us defeated, do not come to help us. These instructions were extremely precise and explicit. In the Battle of Ahad, Mount Ajnadayn was a very important strategic position from which the surrounding area could easily be controlled. Therefore, it was essential to keep it out of enemy hands. Behind the Muslim army were 14 women. Their role was to provide water to the thirsty and to carry the wounded away from the battlefield for treatment. Among them was Fatima, R.A., the daughter of the Messenger of Allah, PBUH, and the wife of Ali, R.A. The Messenger of Allah, PBUH, himself took position with the left wing of his army. The Muslim forces were arranged in a forward-facing formation for battle, and this arrangement was highly effective and well-planned. It allowed them to utilize their strength, courage, and skill to the fullest. Because of this formation, they were able to counter the numerical superiority and cavalry advantage of the enemy, and the enemy failed to exploit their cavalry effectively. Without this strategic positioning, the Muslims had no effective means to counter the enemy's cavalry. It would have been advantageous for Abu Sufyan if the battle had taken place in an open Maidan, as this would have allowed him to use his cavalry to attack the Muslims from the flanks or from the rear. However, the Messenger of Allah, PBUH, did not give Abu Sufyan that opportunity. Rather, he forced him into a frontal battle in a narrow area where the numerical superiority of Abu Sufyan's forces and the advantage of his cavalry were greatly limited. It should be noted that the Muslim army had taken position facing toward Medina, with the Ahad mountain range behind them. The road to Medina remained open for the Quraysh. The Quraysh army advanced forward and set up their war camp about 1 mile south of the steep hill. From there, Abu Sufyan arranged his forces in battle formation facing the Muslim army. He placed infantry in the center and positioned mobile cavalry units on both flanks. Khalid commanded the right wing, and Ikrimah commanded the left, each with a strong cavalry force of 100 men. The overall command of the cavalry was under Amr ibn al-As, although his role was mainly coordination. Abu Sufyan also deployed 100 archers in the front line for the initial engagement. The banner of the Quraysh army was carried by Talha ibn Abu Talha, a veteran of the Battle of Badr. Behind the Quraysh army stood their women. Before the battle began, under the leadership of Hind, the women marched in front of the Quraysh, reminding the soldiers of their loved ones who had been killed at Badr and encouraging them. Then, just before taking position behind the army, Hind sang in a clear and firm voice, "O sons of Abd al-Dar, protectors of our homeland, we are the daughters of the night, your companions in comfort. We will embrace you if you advance, but if you retreat, we will abandon you with contempt." Exactly 1 year and 1 week after the Battle of Badr, on the morning of Saturday, March 22, 625 CE, the two armies stood face to face in battle formation. 700 Muslim soldiers stood against 3,000 disbelievers. For the first time, Abu Sufyan commanded his forces directly against the Messenger of Allah, PBUH. He had many capable assistants with him and was confident of victory. The Muslims repeatedly recited verses of the Quran. Allah is sufficient for us, and He is the best disposer of affairs, and they waited for the decision of Allah. After both armies had taken their positions, the deceiver Abu Amir attempted to bring back the members of his AWS tribe. With his 50 followers and many Quraysh slaves, he moved forward, crossing the front lines of his army. Addressing the people of AWS, he said, "O people of AWS, I am Abu Amir. Surely you recognize me." The AWS people replied in unison, "O deceiver, you are not welcome." They then began to throw stones at him and his companions like a rainstorm. As a result, they were forced to retreat quickly through the ranks of the Quraysh army. Seeing the mockery on the faces of the Quraysh, he declared in a prophetic tone, "After my death, my people will mourn for me." However, the Quraysh paid no attention to his words. After the failure of Abu Amir's attempt, the archers from both sides began to release their arrows. It was like an exchange of artillery fire between two forces. The Quraysh had 100 archers, while the Muslims had some archers on Mount Ajnadayn and others in the front line. Many arrows were fired. Under the cover of the archers, Khalid launched an attack on the left wing of the Muslim army with his cavalry, but due to the accurate aim of the Muslim archers, they were forced to retreat. As soon as the exchange of arrows ended, the voices of the Quraysh women once again echoed across the battlefield, singing, "We are the daughters of the night." The next phase was the duels between the main warriors of both sides. The Quraysh standard-bearer, Talha, advanced forward and shouted, "I am Talha, son of Abu Talha. Is there anyone who wishes to fight me?" In response to his challenge, Hazrat Ali, R.A., leaped forward. Before Talha could strike him, Ali, R.A., struck him with his sword and knocked him down. Talha was not killed, but was wounded. As Ali raised his sword to strike again, Talha begged for mercy, and Ali refrained from striking him. Later, when the full battle began, the wounded Talha was removed by the Muslims. After Talha fell, another disbeliever came forward and took up the Quraysh banner. Hamza, R.A., killed this man. From behind the Quraysh lines, the savage slave was watching this scene. He quietly moved to the right side, attempting to strike Hamza from the side. Hamza, R.A., had placed a long ostrich feather in his turban, making him easy to recognize and follow. Gradually, the duels intensified into widespread combat. Relatives of Talha one after another raised the Quraysh banner, only to be killed by the Muslims. The most were struck down by the sword of Hazrat Ali, R.A. Abu Sufyan himself also engaged in combat from horseback. Hanzala ibn Abu Amir, R.A., confronted him. Before Abu Sufyan could use his long sword, Hanzala struck the front legs of his horse, causing him to fall. Abu Sufyan cried out for help. One of his companions rushed forward and managed to kill Hanzala. Abu Sufyan quickly retreated to a safe position. Meanwhile, Abdur Rahman, the son of Abu Bakr, R.A., was among the Quraysh warriors. He came forward and challenged for a duel. In response, his father Abu Bakr, R.A., raised his sword and advanced, but the Messenger of Allah, PBUH, stopped him and said, "Sheath your sword." This Abdur Rahman later became recognized as a famous soldier of Islam and achieved great distinction in the Syrian campaigns. As soon as the phase of duels ended, full-scale battle began. Both sides engaged in fierce hand-to-hand combat. The Muslims were braver and more skilled in sword fighting, but the Quraysh were able to counter this skill due to their numerical superiority. During the full battle, when Khalid attempted another attack on the left flank, the archers positioned at Ajnadayn repelled it. The Messenger of Allah, PBUH, himself was positioned on this left flank of the Muslim army. He actively participated in the battle and shot arrows at the Quraysh. Beside him was Sa'd ibn Abu Waqqas, R.A., who was professionally an arrow maker and one of the most skilled archers of that time. The Messenger of Allah, PBUH, would indicate targets to Sa'd, R.A., and Sa'd would strike them with perfect accuracy. Hamza, R.A., was fighting on the left side of the Muslim army. By then, he had already killed 2 disbelievers and noticed another advancing toward him. This man was Saba ibn Abu Uzza, whom Hamza, R.A., recognized well. He shouted, "O son of the circumciser, come to me." It is noted that the mother of Saba ibn Abu Uzza used to perform circumcisions in Mecca. Hearing Hamza's words, Saba's face turned red with anger, and he advanced with his sword. As the duel between the two began, the savage slave crept forward toward Hamza, R.A., crawling behind bushes and rocks. When Hamza came within the range of his spear, he carefully measured the distance with his experienced eye, and then stood up to throw it. At that very moment, Hamza, R.A., delivered a fatal blow to Saba's head, and he collapsed at his feet. At the same instant, the savage man hurled his spear. The cruel weapon struck Hamza, R.A., in the lower abdomen and passed through his body, emerging from the other side. Upon being struck, Hamza, R.A., turned toward the attacker and advanced a few steps, roaring like a lion. The man trembled in fear behind the rocks. But Hamza, R.A., could not go far. He fell to the ground. The savage man waited until Hamza's body became motionless. Then he approached the body and pulled out the spear with a jerk. Having completed the task assigned to him, he left the battlefield calmly. That savage slave might get many more chances to fight in the future, but the great warrior Hamza, R.A., would never have that opportunity again. Hamza, R.A., was the lion of Allah and his messenger. Immediately after this event, the position of the Quraysh began to falter, and the Muslims increased the pressure of their attack. When several standard-bearers of the Quraysh were killed or wounded, a slave took up the banner and continued fighting until he too was killed. With his death, the banner fell again. In this way, the Quraysh army began to break apart and started retreating in disorder. Fear spread widely among the Quraysh. The Muslims began to chase them. Seeing the distress of the Quraysh, their women began to wail. They too, terrified, followed the footsteps of their men. In their haste to flee, the women lifted their garments up to their knees and ran, creating a scene that appeared almost amusing to the Muslim army, which was rejoicing in the prospect of victory. Except for Amara, all the Quraysh women fled, while she alone stood behind the Quraysh battle line. Taking advantage of the situation, the Muslims became busy collecting the spoils from the Quraysh camp. The camp was in complete chaos. Women and slaves were trembling in fear of death. Seeing this, the Muslim soldiers shouted in joy. At that moment, all control and discipline within the Muslim army broke down. They assumed that the battle was over and that they had already won. In reality, only the first phase of the battle had ended. The casualties at this stage were relatively low, and the Quraysh had clearly been defeated. It would have been better if the Battle of Uhud had ended at this point, but it did not. Dear viewers, up to this point, everything in the Battle of Uhud had been in favor of the Muslims. Although they had lost a great warrior like Hamza, R.A., the overall situation of the battle was still in their favor, and they were practically victorious. But this was not the end of the Battle of Uhud. Rather, the ending of the battle would be very painful and distressing for the Muslim army. We will present the remaining events of the Battle of Uhud in the next episode, tomorrow at this same time.